English Master International Exam Speaking Test Demonstration. Today we are going to take a look at an IELTS task from IELTS book number 7 by Cambridge University Press. All of my answers are unprepared, so basically this is what's going to happen in my own exam if I were to take the test. We'll start with part 1 and then go on to part 2. After that, I will give you my answers to part 3. So let's start with part 1 first. Now the first question. How do you usually contact your friends? For my own experience, the usual ways I use to contact my friends is via Facebook. That's the number one choice. I normally find myself browsing Facebook for the latest information. And also this is the means of communication that I frequently use to keep in touch with my friends. I also use the telephone for text messaging and direct telephone calls. However, I do not do this very often as a matter of fact, it costs a lot of money. And most of my friends are available on Facebook very regularly as well. So this social media is a very efficient tool in both terms of finance and in terms of quickness of response. Question 2. Do you prefer to contact different people in different ways? Certainly I do. I would rather contact my parent in a different way than to contact my friend. For my father, for example, I often telephone him directly in the evening mostly, and especially with my mother. For my friends, as I already mentioned, it's usually Facebook or other means of social media. Question 3. Do you find it easy to keep in contact with friends and family? Why or why not? I find it no problem at all to keep in touch with my friends and my family. For my family, it's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of communication tools. It's not a matter of distance. It's just a matter of time. In the evening, whenever I have time, I will try to call my father and my mother to tell them how I have been doing for the last 24 hours. You know, it's kind of a report for the activities over the day. For my friends, it's pretty much really easier. A post on Facebook or a group chat or individual chatting with my friends shall do. I also contact my wife via Skype. So I make use of different tools to contact different people and I do not find any difficulty in doing so. Question 4. In your country, did people in the past keep in contact in the same ways as they do today? To be honest, certainly people in the past in my country did not contact each other in very much a similar way to they do now. Take my parents for example. In the past, when they went on a date, because they lived so far away from each other, my father, the only way for him to reach my mom was to cycle all the way to her house, which is about 10 kilometers away, and passing a jungle. Nowadays, it's easy for us to contact each other. My father can now use technology to contact me who lives 80 kilometers away from him. My mother cannot do that, however, but my father can, and so they can both talk to me. And we can use social tools to keep in touch with each other. As say, my father can use Skype, he can use Facebook Messenger, and he can use Viber as well. So we can make video calls, not only to hear from each other, but to see the face as well. Young people nowadays, sometimes they prefer to contact each other via social media rather than via the traditional way of face-to-face communication. I am one of the examples. I normally contact my friends and I'd like to chat with them on Facebook. It's much easier for me to express my feelings via this kind of tool rather than to express my thinking to someone in a direct manner. Now let's move on to part 2. In part 2, I will be given a card by the examiner, and here is the content of my card. Describe a party that you enjoyed. You should say whose party it was and what it was celebrating, when the party was held and who went to it, and what people did during the party, and explain what you enjoyed about this party. Basically, I have 1 minute to prepare and 1 or 2 minutes to talk. So here's my time for preparation. Then my preparation was done. It was a little bit ahead of time. Now I'm going to give you my answer. I'm going to talk about a party that I pretty much enjoyed. Now, the party was held by my old teacher. I will need first to tell you something about him. He was not my first teacher, but he was the most important person in my path toward English competence. I first met him in grade 8, and under his tutelage, I found my way to the most effective way to study English. He guided me, he showed me how to learn the language in the most time efficient way and in the most energy efficient way. And so, thanks to him, I have now become very competent in English. It was an eye opener and a mind opening experience for me to meet him. And so, back to the party itself, what were we celebrating? We were celebrating his silver wedding. 25 years of marriage. He invited a lot of people, mostly family and friends, and I was one of the lucky students to be invited to join the fun, together with some of my friends. So the party was held about 2 weeks ago. As he was a Catholic, just as I was, and many other people who were present at the party, we first had a mass in church. After the mass, we went back to his house for the party. As I mentioned before, there were about 50 people invited. There were two areas in his house. The inner side of his house were reserved for family, and outside the house, in the yard, were the places for friends. I was to sit in the outside area. It was in the evening, and we had a lot of chatting. We had a lot of things to drink and to eat and to talk about. And certainly we did drink and eat a lot. I got so drunk that night. But it was really enjoyable, as this was the time for us to talk about the old time, to enjoy ourselves over the nostalgic memories of the old days. It was also an opportunity for me to meet with his fellows who were also teachers of English. And I'm sorry not to mention that I am also a teacher of English, and so it is fair to say that I did follow in his footsteps. So for me personally, I had a chance to meet up with lots of colleagues from all over the country. Well, he had a lot of relationship, basically. So the party was meaningful to my teacher in the first place. It was also very meaningful to me, as I have learned the value of friendship. Over the years, now he has become my friend and I have become his friend. We no longer treat each other as teacher and student, but rather as friends and colleagues. The party was celebrated successfully, and I had to say, he survived the 25 years of marriage, still up and running. And that is a good example for me to follow in. Now, we are moving on to part 3. In part 3, the examiner will ask me some more questions related to the topic that I talked about in part 2. Question 1 regarding family party. What are the main reasons why people organize family parties in your country? From my experience, there are various reasons why people in my family throw parties as family gatherings. The most common reason is that family parties are a chance for people to gather together to celebrate something big. For example, national holidays, like the Tet holiday or the New Year party. Here, people will celebrate. We will have parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, brothers and sisters, all brought back together. After a whole year of working far away from each other, it's a time for a reunion. It's meaningful. It has the function of tying, of bonding the people in the family together. Furthermore, parties are also a chance for people to warm up their relationships. My family, for example, we often hold birthday parties for each and every member of us. We hold a birthday party for my father, also for my mother, but not for my brother anymore because he already passed away, which is a really sad experience. So to boil things down, let's say parties in my country are held to bring people back together, to reunite the members, and to reinforce the family bonds. Second question. In some places, people spend a lot of money on parties to celebrate special family events. Is this ever true in your country? Do you think this is a good trend or a bad trend? Now, if we think about the financial aspect of family parties, certainly this very much depends on how well off a family is and how that affects their financial status. Some families in my country do spend a huge amount of money to celebrate family events. They will hire an enormous restaurant, very expensive place. They are willing to burn money in order to have the biggest party ever. And they will try to invite as many people as possible as a sign of their happiness is one thing, and also sometimes as a sign of their financial competence. So to say whether this is a good trend or whether this is a bad trend, it depends very much on the purpose and how meaningful and how thoughtful the party organizers actually are. For most of the events that I have ever witnessed, the more money put into the celebration, the less meaningful and the less intimate the parties become. I would say many of these events are a waste of money because they do not reflect any real values at all. People simply take this as an opportunity to show off their wealth. Personally, I think spending such a huge amount of money on those events are a big waste of money, which is to be avoided and which should be taught as a lesson for the younger generation. Now, the next question regarding national celebrations. What do you think some people think that national celebrations are a waste of government money? Would you agree or disagree with this view? Why? Okay, this is a very thought-provoking question. Let's say, how is money from the government wasted via the celebration of national holidays? Let's take the New Year celebration as an example. In order to prepare for a live show, for a show of fireworks, a huge amount of money is spent on buying the fireworks, setting up the fireworks, deploying armed forces to protect the scene, cleaning up the mess afterward, and whatever it is that may incur. This money can pile up to billions of dollars. And so many people believe that this is a huge waste of money, which is rather silly for the government to do so. They argue that such money would rather be spent on other more practical purposes. I personally agree with them. For me, a firework display is nothing more than a TV show. I do not wish to attend those events live, as they do not make any real difference to me. Many people say that this is such an indifferent attitude toward the value of the nation. However, a firework live show shown on TV is good enough for itself. Therefore, it is sufficient for us merely to sit at home and enjoy a firework display in, for example, New York, or in Dubai, or in China, or in any other developed countries, which are better financially than we are. The money spent for the firework display ought to be diverse toward other causes, educational purposes, medical treatments, and so on. We are a developing country. People in many parts of the country are being treated badly and are suffering from the lack of financial resources. Certainly, the money from the fireworks can save lives, can enhance life, and can lead to the overall improvement of people's living standard on a general scale. All in all, I believe that the government spending too much money on national holidays are wasting it in a silly way. This had to be stopped immediately and drastically in order to make way for national improvement. So that's it for today's international exam speaking test demonstration. As you can see, my answer to the IELTS questions were good in some aspects but bad in some other aspects. Now, the question for you is, how would you improve my answer from what I said in this video? We're gonna see a better version next time.